Hello friends, Handjammer here, and this is the second episode of Rusty Bits, in which we will check what the replica of my first PC, which I built with you in the previous episode, can do. In the meantime, I prepared a startup configuration and installed some software and games on the HDD. I also managed to find the mousepad which I used with my first PC. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we begin, I would like to point out that I used the microphone to record all the sounds. I want you to hear audio as it actually sounds, including computer noises. Many fresh owners of the old PCs are surprised by the noise they make, but that's how we use them. The hum of the fan and discs is an indispensable part of this experience. During post, a cool feature of the Quad-Tel BIOS is revealed. It detects that the previous boot was incomplete. If it resulted, for example, from incorrect BIOS configuration, we can verify it at this stage. As you can see, I use ForDOS command interpreter that gives out characteristic sounds at startup, and the mouse driver displays this semi-graphics image, exactly like on my first PC. Let's take a look at the DOS boot configuration. In config.sys, we have HiMemSys extended memory driver, 1 MB RAM disk driver. Sound Blaster drivers are removed, because we don't need them. There is also a variable which sets ForDOS as the system shell. ForDOS itself is a topic for another episode. In AutoExecBat, we have the common variables related to the configuration of a sound card, the path environment variable, and the Smart Drive disk caching program, and the Unimouse mouse driver. Due to the work my mother was doing, Framework III was on the hard drive of the computer. It was an early integrated office suite developed by Ashton-Tate. One could say the predecessor of Microsoft Office. Early doesn't mean primitive. The suite had most of the functions of modern Office software, including a text editor, a spreadsheet with the ability to draw graphs, a database, etc. What's more, the package allowed working on many documents at the same time, and had network support with several protocols available. As you can see, this version of the program was even Polonized, but I didn't load the Polish code page driver, hence the Polish diacritic characters are missing. Another advanced feature of the program was the built-in thread programming language interpreter. I remember trying to create simple character mode animations with it. Another Office program for DOS that I used was a text editor called TAG. The editor was easy to use and supported Polish diacritics without any additional drivers. It had typical features of simple text editors from that period: document templates, a dictionary, and several built-in fonts. Its younger brother was the miniTAG. In my opinion, it was superior to the tag, and I definitely preferred to use it. Despite the lack of some more advanced features, this editor took up less disk space and was faster, and let you draw such cool frames. I wrote a lot of essays in it. Speaking of education and science, I've always been fascinated by the night sky. SkyGlobe is a shareware DOS planetarium that allows you to track position of the stars and planets. I spent a lot of time with it. Another program that caught my attention for a long time was the Electronics Workbench by Interactive Image Technologies. The program allowed you to design the simple analog and digital circuits. After creating the circuit, it was possible to simulate its operation and monitoring it on a virtual oscilloscope or logic analyzer. In the first year of high school, I was taught programming in LogoWriter. I quickly switched to Turbo Pascal, but the fun with the logo stuck in my memory more. It is one of the simple graphics and animations that I created back then. Speaking of graphics, have you ever seen what it was like to browse JPEG files on the 286? This is LXPic, an image viewer for DOS that works even on XT class computers. The JPEG file is only tens of kilobytes, but it takes almost 2 minutes to display it fully. When it comes to image editing, my favorite graphics program for the 286 was NeoPaint from OSCS Software Development. The program supported PCX, GIF, and TIFF files and most of the graphics modes from Hercules to SVGA. However, its performance on this computer leaves a lot to be desired. Anyhow, you are watching this episode not for office, educational and graphic programs, but for multimedia and games. Here is ModPlay Pro, in my opinion the best 4-channel tracker modules player for DOS, which also works well on the 286. In the mid-90s I listened to a lot of Protracker modules, and a bit later also Fast Tracker, Impulse Tracker and Screen Tracker modules, and I still listen to them quite often. The program has no unnecessary bells and whistles, it is just a solid simple module player. Also Blaster family cards are supported, plus PC speaker and various versions of Covox DACs. Let's listen to a few more my favorite tracks. I'm pretty sure it would receive glitter ball and seal of approval. Maybe not the best, but the most popular. The boot up theme from the Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 game. It was Sound Blaster 2.0. And how does it sound on the PC speaker? Given that PC speaker wasn't designed to play this type of sound, it's not terrible. Finally, Covox. Here is a contemporary version based on a PCB designed by Yeager. Only 18 resistors and 2 capacitors, and we have a quite efficient device to play sound through the parallel port. The link to the PCB design can be found in the description below. I used a similar Covox but soldered from the THT elements in the 90s before I bought the Sound Blaster. In my opinion, it sounds slightly better than the Sound Blaster. The treble is definitely more distinct. There is also no noise typical of early Creative Labs cards. From game music, we move smoothly to the games I played on my first PC. One of the first PC games I encountered was Blockout, released by California Dreams. It is a three-dimensional variation on Tetris from Polish team PZK Development. The game has a beautiful graphics in high-resolution EGA mode and an interesting audio setting using PC speaker. By the way, this new Dell monitor is driving me crazy, requiring calibration every time I change the graphics mode. The game itself aged really well, the graphics are aesthetic, the controls are pleasant, and the gameplay is addictive. It runs very smoothly on this computer. I spent many hours playing Dinosaur Discovery Kit from Byte. It is a typical educational game for small children, so what fascinated teenager me about it?
The Dinosaur Discovery Kit from Byte.
Speech synthesis using PC speaker. There are several modes available in the game. A coloring book, story maker in which we create short stories about dinosaurs, and a match 2 game. Story Maker is by far the most interesting of them.
I am Shepard. Welcome to Story Maker. Choose the story title.
We create the story by adding one of the proposed elements in the missing place. It appears simultaneously in the drawing.
A long time ago, there was a land of mountains, lakes, trees,
Finally, we have the option to print, watch or read the entire story we have created.
In that ancient place, there lived a Tyrannosaurus. His body was very small.
The speech synthesizer handles this pretty well.
His color was purple.
Flight Simulator 3 glued me to the monitor for a long time as well. It was also one of the games I first played in the 1980s. The possibility of piloting the plane made an amazing impression on me. Flight simulators are my favorite game genre to this day. Version 3.0 is still quite poor compared to the next ones, but it doesn't have excessive requirements and works reasonably well on very old hardware. Realism is much higher than in other simulators from that period. The graphics are fairly good for the 80s game, especially in the high-res modes. The sound, on the other hand, comes down to the buzzing of the engine through the system speaker and various warning signals. What really irritated me was the same cockpit and the same sounds in each of the planes. Flight Simulator has a special place in my heart, and it works fine on this computer as long as there is not much going on the screen. An interesting game is this PC version of Super Mario Bros. Despite the nice graphics, the game only takes 64 kilobytes. The keyboard control works quite smoothly, and the gameplay is okay, although the smoothness on the 286 is less than on the Super Nintendo. Unfortunately, there is no music here, and the sounds are only played by PC speaker. Of course, this is not a Nintendo product, but rather a demo scene production. Speaking of platformers, Prince of Persia cannot be missed. This is one of my favorite old games. Compared to other computers and consoles, the PC version is by far the best. The music flowing from OPL 2 is great, and the graphics in 256 colors are beautiful. Keyboard controls work much better than joystick or gamepad controls on other platforms. Of course, there are some later conversions for Japanese consoles and computers that look a bit different, but I mean the original version. The game itself on this 12 MHz processor works flawlessly even in VGA mode. Coming back to simulators, one of my favorite titles was Sturmovik, the Su-25 Soviet attack fighter. Here I present the demo version of this game. As you can easily guess, in the game we play the role of a pilot of the Soviet Su-25 attack plane. The game is based on the same engine as other early simulators from Electronic Arts, LXPic or Chuck Yeager's Air Combat. The missions are not very diverse and involve attacking ground targets such as tanks and buildings. The plane controls are also quite simplified. The game offers quite fast-paced action and high level of difficulty. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well on this PC. As far as I remember, on the 16 MHz processor, it was noticeably better. The aforementioned Chuck Yeager's Air Combat is another title from Electronic Arts for aviation enthusiasts. The game allowed you to pilot 6 machines from World War II, the Korean War, and the conflict in Vietnam. It was endorsed by the famous Chuck Yeager, who participated in each of these conflicts, and it offered quite unique gameplay approach. In addition to typical historical missions, we had the opportunity to create our own scenarios. Thanks to this, quite abstract situations could arise, in which, for example, at the controls of a machine from the Vietnam War, we fight planes from the Second World War. The audio-visual qualities of the title are decent. Each of the planes has its own carefully reproduced cockpit and sounds. Airplanes also differ in the flight model. Despite better graphics, the title works a bit smoother than the Su-25 simulator presented earlier. The F-29 Retaliator is another of my favorite flight simulators. This classic Amiga title in the PC version looks and sounds great. Compared to the Amiga version, the graphics are better and more polished. The Sound Blaster's OPL2 chip does an amazing job. Excellent atmospheric music is guaranteed. Unfortunately, the sounds during the flight are a significant disadvantage, played only through the PC speaker. Even on this 12 MHz processor, the game runs very smoothly. I remember that I spent many hours playing with my friend on two computers connected with a null modem cable, allowing for two-player gameplay. Supaplex is a Broderbund clone released in 1991 for Amiga and PC computers. It is a game playing which not only me, but also my sister and dad spent a lot of time. This game from Digital Integration is another title, which looks better in DOS version than on the Amiga. The music from the FM synthesizer also has more charm in my opinion. In addition to typical gameplay like in Boulder Dash, the game also offers levels in which we have to overcome some mazes. My sister once said about this game, "Why shoot and kill people when you can be such a red ball and eat crystals?" There is actually hidden wisdom in this sentence. My answer to this, however, is this. Why be a red ball and walk through mazes when you can be BJ Blazkowicz and kill Nazis in such mazes? Ladies and gentlemen, I present you Wolfenstein 3D. This is a classic title for faster 286 and 386SX computers, but let's see how it works on my machine. As you can see, 12 MHz is a bit too little to enjoy smooth gameplay in full screen. The game worked much better on my first PC. And two much newer titles that also happen to work on this computer. The first is a demo of the excellent game Darker, released in 1995 by Psygnosis. The game has an amazing atmosphere and great graphics. There are even short video sequences in its full version. In this title, we pilot the civilian shuttle defending the hometown of Delphi against the Helons, invaders from the other side of the planet. The vehicle's batteries are charged with the light, so we have to fly near the lighthouses, otherwise we will crash. Darker was one of the few titles to support the VFX1 VR helmet, and it was bundled with it, along Magic Carpet and some other games. I will definitely come back to this game in the upcoming episode on VFX1. The game also allowed you to fly in the tunnels under the city. Unfortunately, as you can see, it works much too slowly on this computer. Another title from the mid-90s is Line Wars 2, a game by Patrick Aalto, published by Safari Software. Originally, the title was released as shareware. Patrick released the full version a few years ago on his website, link in the description below. The game is written entirely in the assembly language. It supports a wide range of hardware configurations. It also allows you to play in multiplayer mode. Standard VGA and SVGA modes are supported, as well as enhanced S3 and ATI card modes. Supported audio devices include Covox, Sound Blaster, and Gravis ultrasound cards. Roland sound cards and modules are also supported. This is one of my favorite DOS games. It has great graphics, great music, and offers fast-paced action for space shooter fans. In the game, we play the role of a beginner space fighter pilot, who repels pirate attacks or asteroids that threaten the space stations. The vector graphics with grout shading still look very decent in my opinion, and the atmosphere of the game is complemented by excellent music by Euphoria. The game itself is inspired by the LD series. For example, the spaceships or space station look familiar. I had the opportunity to play this game in the Pentium era, and as you can see, the performance on 286 is unfortunately disappointing. It is noteworthy that the sequel was recently released, this time with VR goggles in mind. It is available in Oculus Store. In 2015, I encouraged Patrick to test Elite Dangerous in VR mode. Shortly after that, he started working on refreshing the Line Wars. And the final title is my by far favorite DOS game and the first PC title I ever played. Test Drive 2 The Duel by Accolade. The PC version is by far the best of all platforms, and I had opportunity to test them all. It is true that the PC speaker sound doesn't have to appeal to everyone, and the graphics are only in 16 colors, which in my opinion does have some charm. But the PC version is definitely the smoothest and the most responsive and playable. In a way, it is thanks to this title that I became more interested in the automotive industry and the aesthetics of classic vehicles from the 1980s. As far as you remember, we have installed two graphic cards in this computer, SVGA and Hercules. So let's check how working on two monitors connected to a single PC looks like. When turned on, the computer initializes the SVGA card. Hercules remains asleep, displaying only the cursor. In DOS we can switch between screens using mode command with the mono parameter to work on Hercules, and CO80 for color 80 columns to work on a color display. If the program initiates the graphic mode by itself, the correct display will be started automatically. This is how it works with Flight Simulator 3.0. As you can see, the program was launched on a Hercules. However, some artifacts appeared on the SVGA display. Apparently, this is related to partial overwriting of the SVGA memory area by the game. What's more, the Hercules display also shows artifacts in form of horizontal lines. Another title that we will check is Airborne Ranger from Microprose. In this case, the SVGA card is completely blanked, and the Hercules mode works flawlessly. Test Drive 2, the Duel again. A bit of curiosity here. The game runs on both monitors simultaneously, in Hercules mode and in CGA mode. In this case as well we can observe minor artifacts on Hercules. The cursor appears on the screen in random places. If you know what this may be the result of, please share this information in the comments below. Finally, the presentation of CMS sound chips that I mentioned in the previous episode. They extend the capabilities of Sound Blaster with the compatibility with the Game Blaster card. CMS is nothing more than two Philips SAA 1099 chips. Their limited capabilities compared to OPL2 are responsible for the old-school sound known, among others, from the 8-bit Sam Coupe computer. And that's it for this episode. As you can see, this computer can do quite a lot. Although it's a bit too slow to play games from the 90s. In the future, we will try to remedy this by replacing the CPU with a 16 MHz version. See you soon in the next Rusty Bits episodes. Bye!